Hey, welcome. Let's talk about how we can use a batch macro to add set names to SAP data. We have three tables we're going to be using. The set leaf table in SAP defines set membership using a series of operators such as equals, between, contains patterns, the value from and value to fields, and then a field here that identifies whether it's an inclusion versus an exclusion filter. We'll talk a little more about that a little bit later. The set header table just tells us what field the set operates on, and we have some transaction data from FactFlexa, and we want to identify which sets these transactions belong to. Our first step is going to be to combine the set leaf and the set header tables using the key of the set, which is the client, set class, subclass, and set name fields. Let's get rid of the extra fields from the right-hand table. And what we're looking for here is a set leaf with that field name field added to the end, as you can see here. Now that we have this, what we want to do is turn the set leaf data into Alteryx formula expression, something that we can use in a filter tool. Now, I've already taken the liberty of creating a macro ahead of time that does this. There are different ways and different methodologies you can use to put this together. What it really does at the end of the day is it uses a bunch of if statements really to build a string, a text field that will do the filtering using the values in the set leaf table. So in the first record here, you can see we have an equals operator. So this set is looking for records that are equal to A1. And we've built a filter expression in Alteryx to identify that would work in a filter tool. So we've done that for equals. You can see some of the betweens. The tricky one in particular can be the pattern operators. The contains pattern does not contain pattern. We turn those into regular expressions. Now that we're here, what we want to do is we want to split our data stream into the inclusion records and then a separate data stream for the exclusionary records. And what SAP does here is when it's doing set operations, it first uses all of the inclusion filters to select the population of records. And then once it's done that, it takes all of the exclusion records and it filters records out of that population using those. So we're going to do something somewhat similar in Alteryx here. We're going to do it all in a formula expression, but we need to split them out into different data streams. And we're going to do that just by doing a simple filter here. The value sign equals I, so the inclusion records will go up the true anchor and the exclusion will go through the false anchor. What we want to end up with is one record per set that has a formula that completely describes that set. And to do that, we're going to use the summarize tool here. We're going to throw summarize on both the inclusion and the exclusion records. And we're going to start by grouping down to our set. And what we're going to do with the filter is a little fun thing. Made me really happy when I discovered it. It makes me happy every time I do it. Easily amused, I guess. We're going to concatenate the filter. And it's really cool that the summarize lets you do this. Now, when you're doing an inclusionary filter, you want to concatenate using OR logic because you want, for example, an account equal to this, A or B or C. The exclusion is going to go through a very similar process here where we're going to group by the same key of the set, but instead of concatenating on OR logic, we are going to concatenate using AND logic. We don't want D, we don't want E, and we don't want F. We're going to put those streams back together in a union tool, and we're going to error out if the fields are different because they should be the same, and this will give us an early warning if they're not. And then once we put them back together, we're going to do one last summarize to get to that one record per set. And the concatenation that we're going to use on this is going to be, again, an AND concatenation. We want all these records and we don't want these records. So when we run this again, what we should end up with is one record per set with a filter expression that completely describes that set in SAP using logic that Alteryx can understand in a filter tool. And now that we're here, we can build a batch macro to leverage this filter expression and then tag our information with the set name. So let's go and do that. The batch macro, the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to copy over the FactFlexa data. This is going to be the input to the batch macro, and we're going to convert it right away to a macro input. The next thing we need are control parameters. The first control parameter is going to contain the actual filter expression, and this will be used in a filter to get down to our set records. We want one more control parameter. This control parameter will be to tag the data with a set name here. Now, before we go any further, let's give those two parameters some default values so we can do some testing. And then we're going to do test1 as the set name. So we're looking for our account equals A1, and we're going to call it test1 as the set name. The batch macro is really simple. It is going to be literally a filter expression, a filter tool rather, which is going to be the control parameter with the filter. Let's change the annotation here. I don't like messy annotations. And then it's going to be followed by a formula tool. And the formula tool is going to be adding the set name to our data. And it's going to look very similar to what we did with the filter, except it's going to be bringing in the set name. And it's going to be doing it in a string field. And again, I'm going to change the annotation. And then we're going to spit the data right out. Very simple batch macro here. And as we do a test here, you should see that our 11 records get filtered down to one record, which is the one record that matches our filter expression, and then our data gets the set name added to it. And this is all we need for this batch macro. So we're going to save this. Save it something that makes sense to you. Tag with sets makes sense to me. And let's add it to our workflow here. Now the input going into the control parameters is going to be the filter expressions that we've calculated in this last summarized tool up here. FactFlexa is going to go into our data input, and every time that we have a new record from the summarize tool come in, it's going to filter FactFlexa for that filter expression, tag it with the set name. Let's make sure that we've set the control parameters properly. They did automatically set for us. Very convenient. Now we'll run it and we'll see if this actually works here. So what we've ended up with now is all of our transaction data, and we have it tagged with the set that it belongs to. You'll notice that we started out with 11 records here and we ended up with 39 records, and that's to be expected. Transaction or data in SAP can belong to more than one set. In fact, FactFlexa, for example, you could have a transaction belong to revenue and belong to stockholders' equity because they go to different financial statements. So it's not unexpected that you would have more records than you started with. And there you go, a quick and easy way to use the batch macro in Alteryx to add set information to your SAP data. Thanks for watching.